Welcome to the Newswire with me, your host, Tyler Dickerhoof. On today's episode, producer and Alex and I, we talk about jobs, we talk about housing, but it's also Labor Day. So hopefully you're out there enjoying the day with your family. I heard something yesterday. There are more hot dogs eaten in the United States between May and September than all the rest of the year times two.
It's hot dog eating
to start. Yeah, well, it's the end of hot dog eating season. Labor Day is like, if you're long hot dogs right now, you got a problem.
Sure.
Unless you're going into like basketball or hockey. I guess people eat hot dogs there. But anyways, good to be here with you, man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about jobs.
Yeah. So the recent article that we were looking at this morning was all about job hugging. Job hugging is the opposite of job hopping for those listening. Job hopping, you go from maybe stay at a job 1, 2, 3, 4 years, and then you hop to the next, and you're trying to climb, to the next ring, which has been kind of normal over the last several years. Now, studies have shown, this is by Corn & Ferry, who's a large recruitment firm for mostly the executive level leadership, that it is job hugging, meaning that people are latching on to their jobs for as long as they can. Because of
which I don't think is a bad thing. We've talked about this. We'll talk about sports. It's a great interlude for sports. We saw the real official opening weekend of college football. And one of the great problems, Coach Dave Christensen and I talked about this, is you have so many people leaving teams or leaving organizations that you lose culture and you lose kind of the identity. And so I sit here as we're talking about job hugging and saying that's probably not a bad thing. Instead of people like, I don't like it, I'm going to dip and I'm out, are they going to stick around and, try to fix it? You remember, a month or so ago, we talked about the difference between renting and owning. And I think job hoppers are renters. Huggers are like, all right, I may not like it, but there's not something better out there, so I'm going to stay here because this is where I need to stay. I think inevitably that brings probably some good culture and really kind of true identity organizations and leadership development, quite honestly.
Yeah, I think there's a couple factors here. Yes, there's like the cultural aspect of you can finally start to build culture with this group of people as you build out. And it depends on if it's a small business, a mid-size, big, right? I think it tells me a couple things. A, the overall jobs market is tough, right? To find and hop to new jobs typically means there's a hot jobs market. I can find something pretty easily when at least that's how I'm reading it as well. But also it tells me that the jobs market's tough, which I know, and we've discussed before of friends that have been looking for, months, if not even a few years for that job that they want. And also I do think it's good. My mom's a great example. She's been with the same company for over 30 years and has built a great career for herself within that business. And there's a lot of people out there that stick with it and grow within a corporation for 10, 20, 30 years, have a great retirement pension, whatever that is. And that has been the way, and it's been successful for a lot of people.
There's, as you're sharing and I'm thinking about your mom. And one thing that my wife and I, Kelly, were talking about, we have very long tenured employees for the most part. We had a lady that, helped us around the house for like 7-8 years. I literally just today changed my insurance provider. I was with the previous company for 23 years.
Yeah.
And that agent was a fraternity brother of mine, and now we're in some switches. And, it's interesting because you either are hoppers or, it doesn't mean that I'm not always, aware of or employed. Right. Just thinking about it is, we have a lot of it because we were talking, several weeks ago, we had some friends and we were talking about different employees we've had or service providers, like the lady who cleans our house, and we're going on 11 years.
Wow.
And it's just kind of interesting because I think there's a temperament, but this is what I take from it is you're either you yourself are always unhappy, you're looking for something better, or you're trying to make the most of the situation. Now, there's a difference. Sometimes, dude, you need to leave. Like,
Right.
get out of Dodge. It's time to go, cut bait and run. But then there's also the, hey, let's do the work and make this, let's do the work and make it work, right?
Yeah.
But the other thought that I had, because I stop and think about this today, you mentioned jobs market tight. Man, I could go talk to 5 different business owners that I know, and they all are urgently searching for employees. And then I talk to other friends that are, maybe in a different type of setting, and they're one guy, he was talking about they're hiring 2 roles, and they're going through like 25 or 30 different interviews, have so many hundreds of different applicants for 2 roles. And this is what I think the difference is today, and I think it's something that we need to keep very much aware of as we complain about the jobs market. No, white collar is getting beat up. Blue collar, you want to do work with your hands? I got jobs for days. Jobs for days.
Yeah.
Landscaping, construction,
Plumbing,
insulation,
electrical.
plumbing, farming, trucking.
Yeah, trucking, shipping, any of that. Transportation.
You could have, 10 job offers if you're willing to show up, do hard work, and, do those things. Show up and do hard work, quite honestly. You could have 10 job offers a week.
And there's
no doubt in my mind.
And those jobs are paying now $100,000 plus a year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I consider what my daughter is doing. She's working at a coffee shop, and it's hard work. It is, 8-9 hour shifts. It is, you're on your feet. You are hustling. You're going. But she's getting paid really well to do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's if annualized, if she was working a 40-hour week, it's about $100,000 a year job.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. But again, you look at that and it's like, oh, well, that means you have to do work, as opposed to, I don't want to belittle, because I know it's like I sit behind a desk most of the time. You do too. It's like, it's hard work, but it's kind of like, hey, you're going to have to make that, as opposed to this idea of there was so much demand for technology and in that type of work for years. And now it's like, no. Do you want a job in technology? You need to be a repair person rather than a coder.
No, I think you're spot on. Everyone that I'm in my circle, mostly white collar jobs, whether it's in media, something creative, or like fashion, like that's kind of, my group. And that is all white collar. They're trying to look for executive level, senior level. It is extremely difficult. But I think you're right. That blue collar, hard work with your hands, it just, there hasn't been, I don't think maybe it's a generational thing, but that hasn't been what's cool and what's perceived to be, making the big bucks and, living lavishly. I mean, but I think here's
what's difficult with that to me is when you this idea of, oh, I work in I'm going to call it for this conversation because people beat up hard skills compared to soft skills so much. I'm going to describe those as soft industries, right? Yeah. They're soft. Take it, it's tongue in cheek, but it's it's soft, right? And there's this idea that soft is better. Like you think of the financial, the banking, the stereotype of the guy in the vineyard vines and the loafers, and the guy that you're like, did you just go to were you just golfing in a private club with a sweater over your shoulder, or did you go to work? Because I'm not sure. And it's funny because there's so much of the fashion industry now that wants to, like, you go around to whether it's some of the the urban whatever, it's like beat up Carhartts are like, dude, that's a fashion. Like if you have some beat up Carhartts, dude, I got them for I got pants with holes in them, like I got stains on them. I got those things for you if that's what you want. Come out, help do some work. I got some fences to fix. I got some stuff to do around here. I'll put you to work, right? But it's this idea that if I'm an executive for like a major plumbing company or regional, plumbing franchise, that's taboo, as opposed to let me go be a, regional sales director in a pharmaceutical or banking or whatever else. It's like, It's people, it's a service, it's a job. Like, it doesn't matter. And it's funny to me that,
Right.
we're in this place where we do see people that are going away from maybe the soft industries to some of the blue collar industries because they need executive level people. And you're like, oh, I'm doing the same work. I can do this.
Yeah, and I think it's, somewhat societal and cultural where it's like, oh, I'm a, senior executive at X fashion company, or I'm a buyer for Saks, opposed to like, yeah, I'm a manager for this plumbing company, or yeah, I run a tire company and we sell. It's like, oh, that's not sexy. But I think people are starting to realize, screw that. I need to sustain a family, or want to buy a house, which we can get into housing and the housing market and where it's at. But I think who cares, right? Whatever. You work for a tire company, you work for a cool, tech company. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. And I think it's a realization.
Obviously, my background work with a lot of different industries, but try to do more with agriculture because it's a passion, blue collar, and bringing the stuff that I've gone through to them. And it was funny. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to an executive that got recently hired by an agricultural firm with zero agricultural background, none. He had been in education. He had been in consulting. He had actually worked with a large, I would say, plumbing supply company. And comes to agriculture, is like, I had no idea. I didn't even know this existed. And it's funny because it's a, it's a global company with thousands of employees. They have a learning development and just all the things. And it's like, oh, this is no different. It just, man, I would have never guessed that this industry, exists. And it's like, yeah, it's there. And one thing that I know, right, wrong, or indifferent, is as long as people are living, there's going to be an agricultural industry.
Absolutely. And just the need for the, like you described, this hands-on labor, whether it's the plumbing industry or HVAC or whatever, right? Landscaping, agriculture, is robotics and AI isn't going to take that away. It maybe in 100 years when some things are like fully automated, I can see, okay, yeah, maybe send a robot in to fix a leak. I don't know, maybe not. But
here's what I'll interject and say there, because in those industries, robotics has been a big part of it for years. But what they've understood is, instead of having, like, I remember a podcast, probably this has been a couple years ago now, interviewed a gentleman that they were the first ones to build a community with concrete, like a 3D printer concrete. And they'd go in and build these homes. They just set it up and pour it. And it's like, well, that's robotics, but it takes people and it takes expertise, but it also takes repair. And so we jump to agriculture. I mean, there have been, instead of a cow putting the machine, a person putting the machine on cows, well, it's a lot of places now it uses robotics. And, a robot that, the cows walk in and they go to the robot and they're happy and everyone's good. And it's not an employee, but yet it still takes the people to do all that. It's just in different positions. And I think that's where, again, the idea of that, is AI going to replace it? Well, I go back to our conversation we had last week with a gentleman on that recorded for the podcast. And it's like, instead of being afraid of AI, embrace it. Yeah, how could I create an industry where maybe I can't come in and use a robot to fix a plumbing leak, but you know what? I can use AI to, figure out what's the problem, how to best fix the problem, how to create a better solution. And so if I have people that are used to this technology, man, they become way more efficient and faster.
Yeah,
man, that is a way to embrace it rather than run from it.
I think you're spot on. And I think the other thing that this could segue to, because we want to get into these housing unsold homes have just hit a all-time high since 2009?
16-year high. So since 2009, the number of unsold homes on the market just hit, I believe, 15 or 16,000. As someone that is right now actively, I take that back. New construction was 121,000, 126,000 in 2009.
Yeah, your home, and then my brother-in-law is also selling his home. They just had an open house this past weekend. I haven't spoken to them to see how it went, but they're saying their agent said average home is taking at least 90 days to sell.
Yeah.
In Palm Coast, Florida.
And I think what's interesting there is it's very regional. I saw that back in 2007 or 8. We lived in California, and they just kept building houses on Palm because it was easy. They had the permits, and they had the crews, so they kept building. And so the housing market plummeted because there were so many homes in that area. You go to other parts of the country, like where I live now, and I was told this on Friday as we were with our real estate agent and the person that works for the management company for our rental house that we're trying to sell. He goes, right now in this area, there are 25,000 people, potential buyers looking for homes. There's only 2,000 available. So the problem is, okay, there's 23,000, more than what homes are available, but at what price point, is the interest rates that we're starting to slip all of a sudden does that, even though there's more homes on the market, do we start getting to a point where, 0.5% of interest on, a $500,000 home, that's a couple $100 a month. That's the difference between, all right, we can swing this or not.
I think it's a housing price. Like, so in where I live in Florida, and you're right, it's regional. The prices have been cut a little bit, and in New Jersey, where my parents live, out in north central New Jersey, is a very hot area. It's been very strong. There's very few houses on the market, but I have noticed price cuts over the last few weeks, even up in hot regions. And I wonder if it's, Tyler, do you think it's jobs, like people making sure they can hold their job and sustain and buy that new house? Is it the waiting on interest rates and seeing what happens with the rate cuts that are supposed to happen? Like, what's your take on what people are trying to do? Is it a pause?
One of the things that I've learned is, depending on where you're at, especially in the northern part of the country, I look at Washington all the way over to New York. People don't like to buy houses when it's cold and snowy.
Not
you ask any long-term real estate agent, like, no, houses always move in those time of years. They always sell 12 months of the year. However, people don't want to go to open houses, busier in the fall, all those things. And so I typically believe, I'm not a real estate expert, that, this time of year, it's like, hey, I'm willing to price it more aggressively because I don't want to have to carry it until next year. If I can say, I drop the price $10,000 now and I have a carrying cost of $2,500 a month, man, if that means I sell it in September as opposed to March of next year, man, I'm money ahead. And so I think, just one last thing is, according to this article from Newsweek talking about the homes market, they said, and they believe that the 6% current mortgage number is going to be a magic number. And we're close. We're right now 6 3/8, 6.5 for most loans, conventional 30 years, maybe a freckle under 6. But I think that number, if we do see the interest rate soften a little bit here over this month, because we either see the Fed drop it or more banks are aggressive, because they're like, this is what I've talked to bankers and talked to mortgage bankers, is like, they need to just move. They need to, they're sitting here all this money and they've held it at, high interest rates. And they're like, all right, they need transactions because they're not loaning out their money. So they're not making anything on it, and they're being more aggressive pricing mortgages. I've seen that in just the last 30 days myself, talking to people.
So is your take, buyers are being patient and waiting for these rate cuts to occur to get that lower interest?
Yeah, I think that's where we sit right now, that, I wonder, with these increase in numbers, you have, obviously the Fed has been pushed on a lot. We look at, the jobs market. We look at everything going on. There's plenty of reason for the interest rates to dip a little bit lower. What's so funny is, again, the price of, the cost of doing business. You and I have talked about the cost of agriculture, the cost of, transportation. You drop the interest rates 0.5%, and there are construction projects that take off that are right now shelved. You have agricultural, you have other businesses, construction that are like, okay, now we can operate a little bit more at ease because so much of our normal everyday cost of doing business is not tied up into interest. And so I wonder, we talked about this a few weeks ago and talked to construction, talking to friends of mine. I talked to my brother-in-law about this, and like, they have jobs to do that are kind of lined up the next year, but people are not pulling the trigger on them because they are sitting here waiting to figure out what's going to happen with the interest rate. And or the interest rate, if they can get a lower interest rate, now all of a sudden it makes sense, as opposed to, it's kind of a push.
Yeah, I wonder. Oh man, that gets me thinking, because the current head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, I know people, especially President Trump, do not like him because they felt like he's paused for way too long. He was very dovish on his call or his speech. I think it was a week ago or so. Which sent markets up and then they come down, whatever. But if there's an expected cut in September, which we're now in. So happy Labor Day. Is that a 25? Is that a 50? And I don't know this, and I don't know if you do, but it's like, is 50 basis points a 0.5% and 100?
Yes,
okay,
correct.
So we're looking for like 100 basis point.
I don't think they'll ever. If they cut it, it'll be very small and very slow. I don't see them, because of his pushback. All of it, he's not going to go a big number. It just won't. It'll be, I'll do a quarter. I think a half would be crazy. I'm like, he probably does a quarter, and then they can come in the next month and said, all right, well, if that didn't make the world stop spinning, we can do another quarter. Here's, so that's, we talked jobs, we've talked housing. Let's talk about the other article that you and I shared, and this was from the NPR, and this was talking about how, kind of this, man, I don't want to say, has Trump lied to everyone that I'm going to make it better? I'll let you kind of take your, position on this article from the NPR and Andrea Sue, to, kind of, and then we'll run in conversation.
Yeah. So, to answer your question of like this, I think the president, his promise was to create a golden age of America. Like that to me was something that resonated, maybe just came through in a lot of his talk, right? Bring industry back, bring jobs back, get money in people's pockets, cut taxes, everything. Inflation's hot. And then you create Doge with Elon, and that I don't think that really did much. I think they found stuff they weren't supposed to find and hire people, and not different people on the back end. Go, you got to get this guy out, and because money goes into black projects and projects you don't want people to know about, and he's finding things about people that aren't alive. I don't know. It's just it's a swamp. When people say it's a swamp, that the government is a swamp. And during that process, they cut out a lot of jobs, government jobs, federal jobs, that maybe shouldn't have been cut so quickly, so harshly, so fast. And I do think that may have been a mistake, just how quickly they moved to make changes, because I think everyone was excited for it. And Elon and Trump, we all know how that ended up. It didn't really work out. Wasn't a what was it? It wasn't a romance that ended.
Yeah, as you're saying that, this is what I think is going to come about with the. I'll dip into the Elon experience, and then we'll get back into kind of this, the overall consensus of Trump. The first, I don't think if in 5 years we look back and say, all right, how did the Elon and Doge experiment go? I'm like, oh, did that save us any money?
Right.
Maybe not. But you know what it did do? It exposed to a massive world of corruption.
Yes.
And I think, whether it's Tulsi Gabbard and everything she's gone through, whether it's the Kash Patel, whether it's now the, Lisa Cook, who has been kind of quote unquote fired by Trump. And then she's saying, you can't fire me. And he's like, watch me fire you, because somebody's got to hold accountable, because they were doing, if you're not sure what happened, is she is essentially the second in command at the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
And she was caught to have two primary residence mortgages.
Right. I saw
If you've ever gone through that, you fill out a mortgage, and is this your primary or is this investment secondary? And usually banks will, kind of look at those differently based upon risk. And so if it's your primary home, it's typically a lower interest rate because there's potentially less risk. And she and a couple others, government, and people do this, I know people do this, claim everything is their primary residence to get a lower interest rate.
Right.
And somehow, some way, they figured out she did. And they're like, you're in this game, like Federal Reserve, and you're pulling these shenanigans, you're done. And I think, in regard to whether that's the reality or not, obviously that's what has been said. That is what's being delivered. I think when it comes back to Elon, it's going to be, he started to flake away at this dirty crust that holds on that entire industry. And it's going to take time. And I think we're in the throes of it. And it's going to continue. And how deep are they able to go to pull back a lot of the corruption? I think that's what we're going to remember Elon and Doge for. Is it kind of started the investigation into this? Is this legit? As opposed to, man, that was the thing that made a difference in this administration.
Yeah.
Line transition. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I do think what they did, what Doge did in terms of finding it and bringing it to light, which a lot of the public felt was happening, was like a positive thing. I think, how quickly they moved. There seems to be a lot of red tape and bureaucracy when you kind of get to those levels, and whose feathers you're ruffling. I think and him and Trump have big egos, that probably didn't work out. It wasn't meant to be like a long-term thing, just because he's got Tesla and SpaceX and all this other stuff. I don't know how
he's got a lot of other irons in the fire. And I think he is I think most people would agree he's a person that is best on his own, because he can be kind of frantic and all over the place. And it works when it's you and it's you're calling the shots. It doesn't work when you're, part of a team. And you know what? Our world would not be what it was. I would not be online with you right now if it wasn't for Elon, because I use Starlink, and he's made internet accessible to so much of the world that never had it available. So let's transition to the one thing that, people are saying is like, oh, is Trump kind of lied about all of this? Here's my take on it. And, I've talked to friends, and we discussed this a little bit. He learned a lot in his first 4 years and then sitting out 4 years that I look at it as he has gone for broke in regards to, I'm going to go deep. I'm going to go hard. I'm going to, cut all these things. I'm going to go do all these tariffs. And, now you have this pushback in the tariffs, and it's like, there's judges saying you can't put on tariffs. And it's like, anyways, whatever. I think the like anything else, the hardest change when you go to lose weight is the first change.
Yeah.
You start building momentum. You start enjoying working out. Your clothes fit a little bit better, and you're like, all right, I'm all in. And I think we're at that stage, kind of like in the first of the year, the workout. It's the end of January, and you're like, I haven't lost any weight. I'm tired. The gym is packed. This is annoying. Why do I keep doing this? I'm getting no results. It looks worse than it is better. And it's just, that's where I think we are in the process, because, there's a little bit of faith in that, but it's also understanding, to see the results, you got to make a lot of changes before the results show up. And when you're sitting here complaining about, I don't see any results, like losing weight, like saving money, like anything you do, you just got to stay with it. And I think all of the foreign investment, the trade deals that have been done, those don't change the economy and or the job situation overnight. Yeah. But that is a long term that I think is going to show up in probably year 3 and 4 of the administration rather than even year 2. I think we'll start seeing it in year 2. But that's just my take on it. But I also know this is because of it, we're probably going to see the economy get leaner and tighter in year 2, just because it's going to have to, when it comes back to this, we're going to see a lot of people that refuse to go to blue collar jobs. They're going to be unemployed, unemployment, and you're going to sit there and say, dude, why don't you go get a job that you have that's available? I think we're going to see those switches in our society, and it's going to be I want to buy a 3,000 square foot home on, a half acre in a beautiful cul-de-sac and gated. And it's like, no, I'm going to go buy the 3-bedroom, 1,500 square foot in, whatever, because that's what I can afford. And I'm just going to start there. I think we've seen people make those decisions. We're going to see that even more. And those are healthy things.
I think you're right. Anytime you're going through something that is going to positively impact your life or an economy, it's usually really tough, especially in the beginning. Like when you're eating something healthy, right? And the taste buds in your mouth may go, oh, that's not so good. But it's actually, and then through time, it gets to taste better. When you eat a Big Mac, oh, it's delicious. But the ramifications are, in the end, bad, right?
And it's funny. It's kind of like this. You'll laugh about this one is, we can talk a little bit. Let me give you a football interlude. One of my son, he had a teammate that quit football on the day of their scrimmage at the end of fall camp. And it's like, dude, you quit on the worst day, meaning all of a sudden you have scrimmage. The next week is your first game week, and all of a sudden you go on an appointment. Instead of beating yourselves up for 2 weeks, 3 weeks in practice and 2-a-day and all that thing, now you get to go beat somebody else up or compete against someone else, and you quit on the worst day. Like the worst day of the entire season you just quit on. Like the least fun day was the day before or of the scrimmage, and you quit. That's the worst it's going to be.
We'll see. I think there's also a lot of pushback, right? Anytime there's a new president, new regime, our country's complex. So in other regions and people within the government are on the opposite side, right? Democrats, Republicans, and there's a lot of pushback. So there's going to be that natural grinding away to get what you want. Like Trump doesn't just come in and get what he wants and put everything in place. Like it's a process, and it's going to take a lot of grinding. And I think in year 2, we might see it's going to be tough, at least for the first, maybe the whole year, but at least for 6-7 months in there. And then I think you're right. I think it's the end of maybe next year. And then years 3 and 4 is where we'll see a lot of the results.
All right. Here's a question for you. Manning, overrated or bad game?
I was waiting until we get to this. Listen,
overrated or just a bad game?
I was listening / watching the game driving home from the shore. And it was
best way to take on the game is listen.
I was shocked by the score of, was it 7-0 in the third quarter?
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, this is like two of the best teams with weapons. This is so boring. And then I watched replays of Arch. He's just so hyped up, and I just, maybe he got spooked, but he did not play good. I just think he's a little. Maybe it was just something he needed. Maybe he'll bounce back from this. I think week 2 you'll really tell if it's going to be an up down.
The thing that shocked me is, I saw the stat that he was 37% on accuracy.
Yeah.
And that was something shocking. Wow. And, there were just some like really bad habits that all the pundits have shown. And it was like, oh, how did that happen? And you can sit and people are talking, about Sarkisian and the play calls, this or that. It's like, yeah, dude, but you got to execute on the plays that are called. And when you don't execute and it's just At the same point, then you have the Ohio State quarterback who was the class behind him, the number one quarterback, and he made every single throw.
Yeah.
He had some, world-class receivers that
Were
plain
off.
dropped the ball, and it was interesting. So, I mean, the other take on it, and this goes back to, we talked about this, the culture hopping. Last year, Florida State couldn't win a game. They were 2-10. Couldn't win a game.
And they just beat Alabama.
And they just embarrassed Alabama. They didn't beat Alabama. They embarrassed Alabama.
Which is like...
and it's interesting to see that big of a change where, last year they're calling for the coach to be fired. This year it's like now they're calling for the Alabama coach to be fired.
I saw that, yeah. There's
He's
a lot
had
of memes.
more top 10 losses than Saban did in his entire history at Alabama.
Both of those schools, Texas and Alabama, their fan base, ruthless. Brutal.
Yeah, the thing about Texas is I think people are like, oh, we're not – I mean, everything – and feel bad for the kid. He's, 20? That everything, all the ire, you look at all the memes and just everything about luckily he has the family he does around him. That's a very supportive family that they're rallying around that kid for sure. Got to give him credit for that support, whatever. It's going to be interesting how they bounce back. And
that's the key. But how you bounce back.
It is, as one person sent me a message who is very much in the know. Yeah, he's overrated. And I would say by that performance,
he didn't show
even if it was rattled, he never settled in. But here's the other piece of this is, as they made the mention, that Ohio State's new defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, coordinated for the defense 6 Super Bowls, won 3 of them. And as they said, he was used to game planning against Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, and Aaron Rodgers and the likes of those guys. Dude, having a game plan against Arch, okay, is this just, middle school?
Planning a 3-year-old's birthday party.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
pretty simple.
Make it hard on me. And so, anyways.
And it was a good week. It was a good week. I'm excited. I'm excited football's back, man. That's the number one.
Who the Jets have this week?
Packer. Oh, no, Steelers. Steelers week 1. Their old quarterback.
Spicy.
Good old Aaron Rodgers back in Giants Stadium.
You got Justin Fields who went to the Jets. You have Aaron Rodgers that is now with the Steelers. Here's the question for you.
Your old Buckeye quarterback.
Absolutely. And Garrett Wilson. There are a lot of Buckeyes there.
Yeah.
Does Aaron Rodgers make it through the season?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think he should have retired, honestly. It's just his we can talk about this. I know we're getting late here, but listen, I don't mind Aaron Rodgers. I know a lot of people don't like him. I don't mind him at all. I don't think he's a bad guy. I listen to a lot of the different stuff he's had to say. I don't mind him at all. I just think he has an ego. We're talking about one of the best, greatest quarterbacks to play the game. Very talented guy. But at some point, you just got to throw in the towel and just be like, hey, I gave it all my all. Even with the Jets, I don't even think he should have came back after that injury. He wasn't the same quarterback, to be honest with you. So I just we think about Brady. Brady had such a hard time leaving the game and retiring, and it got to the point where he physically was just pretty much unable to do what he had been able to do. That happened with Peyton Manning, right? And Peyton Manning with his neck and his tricep. He could barely make a throw, and Brady got to that point. I don't think that was ever the case with Rodgers last year. But yet his performance didn't help him win games, and they needed him to win games the way that the Jets were structured. I would say this is, in Pittsburgh, the MO is the quarterback is not going to win you games. That's just the way that they, for most of the Steelers, you go back years, but the last handful of years, we're going to be in the thick despite our quarterback. Going back to, you had the years, obviously Big Ben was winning games for them. But you wonder if all I'm looking forward to is he gets rid of the ball quick. That is one of the things he does well. When he's got Myles Garrett, arguably
the top, defensive end edge rusher in all of the NFL in his division that he's going to face twice,
he's going to get destroyed. Because
you would, yeah.
What made Aaron Rodgers great, and you watched him just maybe as much as I did, is when he was younger, he could move. He was a good athlete. Very mobile. He stood in the pocket and released quick. That was one great part. And he's a very talented guy. But the other part of the game was the play action. And if nothing was there, he took off and ran. And he was deceptively fast. And
he made the defense respect that. And now it's like, no, you're kind of a sitting duck.
He's sitting duck. He can't do anything. So that whole part of his game is eliminated. So you tight man, send the blitz. And, he can get it out in 2 seconds. But
and that's where when you have teams that have very good coverage, like the Browns have good corners. Yeah. And they got I'm excited for that one. We got the Bengals. We got Joe Burrow. We'll see what happens there. But anyways, thanks for being here today. Thanks for watching. Would love your comments. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to get notified whenever we drop new content. Otherwise, we release podcasts on Wednesday where you can find the Tyler Dickerhoof Show wherever you listen to podcasts or back here on YouTube. Till next time, choose to lead with impact.